David Lynch's first feature is basically a proof of concept for his entire career. Lynch's fiercely idiosyncratic voice arrived fully formed in the quintessential cult classic that is 1977's Eraserhead. The same year that George Lucas transported audiences to a galaxy far, far away and transformed Hollywood into an IP farm, Lynch debuted one of the most singular and most abstract visions in underground cinema. Shot across several years on a shoestring budget cobbled together from AFI funding and donations from Sissy Spacek, Eraserhead was a landmark in independent film and a revolution in the art form as a whole.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Elaborate on that.
No, I won't.
Lynch famously refused to explain the intended meaning of Eraserhead, so that information died with him, but he always protested the most common reading, that it's about the fear of fatherhood and the anxiety of being a bad parent. But whether or not the author subscribes to that interpretation, it's perfectly valid, because the author died the second his film hit the midnight movie circuit. That's how I've always interpreted the film, going back to my very first viewing as a ne'er-do-well teen. Even before I went hunting on Google and saw that it was a popular reading of the movie, outlined in thousands of think pieces scattered across the internet. I read Eraserhead as a bizarre manifestation of the fears of being a father. Like Pete Campbell, I arrived at it independently.
I thought of that. Turned out it already existed, but I arrived at it independently.
Eraserhead established all the familiar hallmarks that would go on to define Lynch's directorial style. Ambient noise draped over disturbing imagery, turning mundane situations into a terrifying affair and exploring the dark side of Americana. Lynch is cinema's answer to Franz Kafka, telling strange allegorical stories carrying deeply resonant social themes underneath their outlandish facade. And his Kafkaesque approach to filmmaking can be seen from the very beginning. Lynch's debut feature follows a dream logic. The opening scene with Henry's head merging into a planet and a giant sperm coming out of his mouth makes it pretty clear that this might be a dream. That would become the get out of jail free card for almost all of Lynch's films. Whether it's Blue Velvet or Mulholland Drive or Fire Walk with Me or Inland Empire, you can excuse any inconsistencies with it was all just a dream. The linear straight and narrow story of Eraserhead is Henry Spencer's struggle to adjust to his newfound responsibilities as a father. But the film slips in and out of an ethereal dreamscape where there's a tiny nightclub behind the radiator, and Henry's head isn't always attached to his body. These dreams, or rather nightmares, keep being interrupted by the baby crying out for its dad. While Henry is dreaming about the lady in the radiator and the fun and freedom she represents, the baby is lying in the corner of the room, wailing uncontrollably, desperate for affection. Eraserhead is the epitome of Gabe Lewis's favorite subset of filmmaking, the cinema of the unsettling.
The cinema of the unsettling is a growing film movement. The most well-known film in the genre is an hour-long shot of a squirrel with diarrhea.
In his attempt to make one of these movies himself in The Office's spookiest Halloween episode, Gabe encapsulated what made Lynch such a revolutionary filmmaker. He avoided telling straightforward, conventionally structured stories because even narrative is comforting.
What's the story?
There is no story.
Yeah, it seems like there isn't a narrative. Maybe the filmmaker realized that even narrative is comforting.
What frustrates a lot of people about Lynch's films is his steadfast policy of ambiguity. Lynch's movies don't explain themselves, they don't tie up loose ends, and most of the time they don't even make sense. But that's very much by design. Lynch doesn't want to give you the comfort that closure would provide. He wants to keep you guessing. He wants everyone who watches his films to have a different experience and come away with a different interpretation. Lynch's imagery is so powerful and layered and distinctively his own that every frame is oozing with subtext. From its cinematography alone, you could peg Eraserhead as a bleak satire of the industrialization destroying small-town America. It opens with the man in the planet endlessly pulling levers, wasting away his life on an endless slog of menial work, owing his soul to the company store. The use of rough, grainy, black and white film adds a drabness that highlights the industrial boot pressing down on all the world's natural beauty. A hopeless romantic takes a posy to the woman he loves and has to step over mounds of dirt and industrial piping, and navigate the garish, monolithic buildings towering over over him. He walks across train tracks, and when he meets his girlfriend at her front door, the rushing traffic in the background sounds like a war zone. Eraserhead captures the soullessness of an increasingly corporatized and monopolized world, squeezing out the last remaining glimmers of hope and humanity. It doesn't really make sense as a traditional A to B to C, beginning, middle, and end narrative, quote unquote, but it resonates on a more subconscious level. This movie has a vibe, and the vibe touches on very innate, very human anxieties. The fear of commitment, the fear of intimacy, the fear of responsibility. It's all conveyed by Lynch's signature trick of presenting these mundane, relatable situations, like raising a child or having dinner with the in-laws, and filtering them through this lens of deeply disturbing psychological horror.
If we wanted ideas for scary stuff.
No, that'd be scary.
What do you think?
All right, let me go get it.
The content of the script is almost like a sitcom. The dad is left holding the baby gets sick, Mr. Mom frantically tries to save the day through some pretty kooky means. But it has the creepy atmosphere of The Shining. In fact, it predated The Shining. Legend has it that before he started the arduous year-long production of The Shining, Kubrick screened Eraserhead for his cast and crew, so they were all on the same page about the kind of atmosphere he wanted to create. The scene where Henry goes to his girlfriend's house and has dinner with her parents is when Lynch's voice finds its sweet spot and an iconic visionary is born.
The girls have heard this before, but 14 years ago, I had an operation on my arm here. Doctors said I wouldn't be able to use it. Well, what the hell do they know, I said. And
on paper, it's basically a precursor to Meet the Parents. Boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy meets girl's parents, boy makes a terrible first impression. But it puts an oddball horror twist on everyday situations to throw you off kilter. The small talk is excruciatingly uncomfortable, the dog is feeding a ravenous litter of puppies, the mother works the grandmother like a puppet to toss the salad, the roasted chicken starts writhing around on the table, the mother seemingly has an orgasm from her psychic connection to the twerking chicken, and the chicken oozes a horrible black sludge, and the dad is just sitting there the whole time like it's all perfectly normal.
you'll be all right in a minute.
The polite dinner turns into a shotgun wedding when the mother confronts Henry about having sex with her daughter, then aggressively comes onto him, then chastises him for getting her daughter pregnant, and finally forces Henry to marry her daughter and raise the child. And therein lies our central premise. That's when a creepy indie horror film becomes the definitive cinematic statement on the anxieties of fatherhood. Cut to, that baby is the creepiest, weirdest fucking creature you've ever seen in your life. There are plenty of theories about what that baby is made of, but Lynch never confirmed or denied anything. In a world where very few Hollywood secrets stay secrets, the baby in Eraserhead remains a mystery of macabre movie magic. Once the kid arrives, Eraserhead follows an episodic plot full of unnerving non sequiturs that tick off all the insecurities that one might have when becoming a parent for the first time. That xenomorphic little baby isn't just a memorable monster design. It highlights one of the darkest what-if scenarios an anxious parent's mind could cook up. New parents are supposed to feel this inherent sense of love and protectiveness kick in when they hold their baby for the first time. But what if they don't? Lynch brings that awful fear to life by making a hideous, grotesque baby that's impossible to love. When you look at a real newborn baby seeing the world for the very first time, you can't help getting a warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart. But when you look at that ugly fucking thing in Eraserhead, you feel no joy, you feel no warmth, you feel dread, you feel empty inside. You have no biological imperative to take care of it, and neither does Henry. Before too long, the baby gets sick. That's another insecurity, not knowing what to do when emergency strikes and your child needs you. It's the parent's job to protect the baby, but there are certain things you can't protect them from, like disease. Parents will still feel a sense of guilt and accountability even when something like that happens. They feel like they failed, even though there was nothing they could do. Again, Lynch takes that to the extreme by having the baby erupt in hives and boils like a demon being condemned back to hell. Before they even get to the terrible twos, the mother walks out and abandons the baby, leaving Henry to raise it alone. The mother eventually comes back, but then Henry is tempted by the allure of another woman. He decides to go through with the affair, but he loses the other woman to a romantic rival. These are all the worst case scenarios that plagued Lynch's anxious mind. Whenever Henry's head is replaced by the baby's head, Lynch grossly symbolizes the biggest fear of parenthood. The kid will turn out just like you.
And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon
Henry's one-room apartment isn't big enough for a family, and the set design captures the claustrophobia beautifully. There's barely room for Henry, let alone Mary X and the baby.
Fit on this couch.
Henry's sperm keeps coming back to haunt him in his dreams. Giant sperms keep bogging him down. It's a hilarious manifestation of how blowing one load 9 months ago has ruined his life. One misplaced ejaculatory deposit can lead to 18 years of misery and hard work, and you'll forever be haunted by that orgasm. As it goes into its third act and Henry gets fed up of being a father, Eraserhead leans into the resentful feeling that your child has ruined your life.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud?
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be a rock star.
Why didn't you become one?
'Cause of you, bud. I smiled at one girl in a cell phone store, and now here I am stuck eating cereal for dinner with a kid.
You'll always be a rock star to me, Dad.
You ruined my life.
When Henry tries to woo his neighbor, the baby's needs keep getting in the way. He has to sacrifice his own fun and happiness just to keep this needy little creature alive. Henry unswaddles the baby, revealing that it has no skin and the blankie was the only thing keeping his internal organs in place, and then stabs it to death, sparking a wild metamorphosis that ends this bonkers movie on an appropriately bonkers note. It's a bit extreme to actually kill the kid, but every parent, whether they want to admit it or not, can relate to that resentment. You give and give and give, and this kid doesn't appreciate a fucking thing.
Sometimes I wish I wasn't a mom. Sometimes I want to pack a bag and leave in the middle of the night and not come back.
At this point, I should point out that despite the fact I've been generalizing the entire parenting community throughout this video, I don't have any kids, so I'm speculating, i.e. talking out of my arse, when I make these brazen assumptions about parenthood. But I'm getting to the age where just about everyone I know is having kids, and I'm noticing some troubling patterns.
Claiming she could take it no more, the young mother released the emergency brake, allowing her car to roll backwards into the nearby lake.
Good for her.
In its final moments, Eraserhead takes a really haunting turn. After seemingly killing his own child, Henry is warmly embraced by the lady in the radiator. The lady in the radiator was initially presented to us as a girl next door type, the object of Henry's infatuation. But that goes out the window when she starts massacring the sperm. Instead, the lady in the radiator seems to represent Henry's subconscious, and specifically his burning desire to murder his child. He's so ashamed and afraid of this desire that he literally stuffs it behind the radiator. It's only after Henry goes through with it that the lady in the radiator invites him into the light and holds him. Without wanting to put too fine a point on it, Eraserhead makes a lot of sense if you think about it as a movie about infanticide. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.